about such an important subject for the survival of our planet. But before I even say anything to all of us in this room, I want us to stop for a moment and reflect on how much grounds we have lost in the last 2 years on climate, the environment, and forests. One would recall that most of the headlines, most of the policy framework and attention was on climate issues, and of course, issues surrounding the forests 2 years ago. The world in which we're living in has changed so drastically over the last 2 years that the focus on these important matters is slowly shifting with rapid impact. If you look at the news cycle today, it is all about wars and conflicts and finding peace and sending peace ambassadors out and trying to avoid wars and conflict. The intensity of this change was reinforced to me earlier today when I was asked by the Islamic community to make a few calls because they have their delegation going to the annual pilgrimage and trying to get leaders and ministers from a number of countries in the Gulf was so difficult because everyone were engaged in some form of peace negotiations or conflict negotiations somewhere in the world. So we must ask ourselves, is the climate timetable being pushed back against the fact that the effects of climate change is increasing with greater intensity every year? And when we look at the policy frame of the world and the priorities of the world today, we are seeing climate, the environment, forests, much less biodiversity, being pushed further and further down the agenda, down the priority listing of what the world is looking at. And this is frightening. That is why I want to compliment all of you in this room today for the work that you are doing in ensuring that we fight back, at such a rapid pace that we do not allow the attention on these critical issues to be lost or minimized. We have a duty and responsibility, especially to those before us who would have done groundbreaking work to get us to where we are. And I want you to applaud yourselves for being part of this group. We in Guyana are investing not only now from the forestry side of things. We are now working on the launch of the Global Biodiversity Alliance here in Guyana later this year, just in a few months. Because we understand that maybe by the time the world gets around to a serious discussion on biodiversity, we will lose 90% of our biodiversity. Then it will be too late. And the costs will be incredible to try to build back that biodiversity. That is why these meetings, this coming together of minds, is so key and critical. But what is most important as we confront these global challenges is the strength of our partnership, the strength of our collaboration, the strength of our cooperation. And that is why Guyana and the UK, we are placing a lot of energy, a lot of resources and effort behind this initiative. We cannot afford for this initiative to fail. So we have no choice but to accelerate our activism, to accelerate our work, and to expand the partnership. But we're doing so at a time when economic opportunities cannot be the opportunity costs of saving the forests. Very importantly, we have to demonstrate how the forest can stimulate economic and livelihood opportunity, improving the model that livelihood does not come as an opportunity cost of keeping the forest. And here in Guyana, I want to humbly position that we are in the process of building a model that is allowing this aspect of the equation to be solved by investing revenue from carbon sales back into the communities to enhance livelihood options, to enhance infrastructure, and to create opportunities within the forest itself. And then we have to leverage this brand. We cannot be looking at this only from a scientific perspective. We have to understand, how do we leverage the brand of the forest in the world so that we can influence social spending and behavior by understanding what the forest means to humanity and understanding how your spending in products that comes from the forest help to keep the forest alive. And this is how we can build a series of small and medium-sized enterprises on a common platform. Imagine if the forested countries, if we come together, the 32 of us now, and launch one common marketing platform where we develop products that are sustainable and we sell it on this common platform. We create an economic platform, 32 of us coming together. That is a power we bring when we come together here today. If 32 of us decide that we're going to market each other's ecotourism product, that we're going to support each other in different corners of the world, that together we're going to build the scientific, the economic, the social, the financial, and the human platforms that would support upkeeping the forest and ensuring it's intact. Then we have an important responsibility of creating in the mindset of people a level of consciousness that allows you to act involuntarily. And let me give you an example. As president, I've had the opportunity to travel all across Guyana. And in the last 3 years, if I travel in an area over the forest and I see something that I did not see, months ago, Jerry is here, he would tell you, I would ask the guys if we can get down there because I want to investigate it myself. Sometimes I believe I'm a forest ranger myself. Because a level of consciousness and identity has been created within me that was not there, I'll be honest with you, that was not there at the level it is today 4 years ago. How do we ensure that this also becomes the norm of our citizenry? And we've tried in Guyana to come up with a very creative idea. And I had the opportunity last night to review the first set of VR and immersive videos on our waterfalls and forests here in Guyana. We're going to launch it very soon. It was breathtaking, extraordinary. It was just fantastic. And I wanted to do a small experiment. So I took home the apparatus and I called my 6-year-old son. And I put it on his head. And he looked at the video and he said, wow, amazing, nature. I am with nature. And I sat there and listened to him describing what he is seeing and his feelings. And after he had the opportunity, the most amazing thing, he said to me, can I take this to my friends and my class at school tomorrow? That is the power that technology gives us. How do we deploy this power to create in the young minds what we are talking about in these AC rooms here? We will have to invest in it. But it is a story that must create shift in the mindset. And we have to decide among the participants here, how are we going to deploy this technology that is available to us? How are we going to influence AI or train AI to help us in the messaging and building the awareness and creating the framework? These are very important questions. And it's not going to get easier. Everybody is speaking about renewables. Rare earth is becoming more important. Lithium is becoming more important. We know what it takes to the environment and the forested areas to get rare earth and lithium. And as the demand grows, it's easy to look at one side of the equation and say, let's get more. But as the demand goes, the environmental impact is going to increase rapidly. And make no mistake, not a single person has assessed, well, publicly, maybe privately, the impact on forests, on forested areas, and the environment as gold prices continue to climb. As gold prices continue to climb, and giving the projection as to where it will be, these are things that we cannot avoid in the discourse. These are the conditions under which the policies that we are framing is being tested globally. So it is in this context, this frame, that we are gathered here in Georgetown, Guyana today. And on that note, let me welcome you to Guyana. And welcome you at the same time to the Caribbean community and South America. Because we are the headquarters of CARICOM and the gateway, we are part of South America, the gateway to South America. Such a unique opportunity we present to the world. For the first ever all-member meeting of the Forest and Climate Leaders Partnership held in this part of the world. If we were to drive about an hour, or in some instances now, 10 minutes from where we are now gathered. I say 10 minutes because if you go 10 minutes up the road, you will see the regrowth of the mangrove. I know it is affecting tremendously the view of the U.S. ambassador to the Atlantic. So we have the regrowth of the mangrove, and then just an hour away, where we are gathered, we would reach the edge of the largest expanse of tropical forests on Earth. The vast rainforests formed by the Guyana Shield and the Amazon, all 6.7 million square kilometers, is a biodiversity superpower. It sustains life on a continental and global scale, releasing nearly 20% of the world's fresh water into the Atlantic Ocean. 20% of the world's fresh water into the Atlantic Ocean. It helps regulate the climate, shapes weather systems, and supports food security and economies from the U.S. Midwest to West Africa. This rainforest is not only a vital ecological resource, it is the world's largest climate utility. And while the Amazon is the largest tropical forest system, it is not alone. Our friends from Africa and Asia who are here with us today bring experience from equally vital forest areas. Yet every year, millions of hectares of tropical forests are still lost. In this room, we all know why. For centuries, development models placed little value on standing forests. Cleared land was seen as more valuable for agriculture, mining, or infrastructure. This model of land use supported the development of most of today's advanced economies and has been entrenched in development for even longer than the world's reliance on fossil fuels. Changing that model is urgent. But it is also profoundly difficult to create a development model where forests are worth more alive than dead. It is not enough to tinker at the edges. We must reverse the entire dynamic. We saw this in Guyana many years ago. In 2009, then President Jagdeo laid out a vision for Guyana to serve as a living laboratory to show how nations could protect forests while meeting the development aspirations of their people. That vision led to our low-carbon development strategy, and today, its latest evolution, the LCDS 2030. This guides our national paths. We have maintained forests on 85% of our land. They store 19.5 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. And our deforestation rate remains below 0.06%, one of the world's lowest. We have received over $500 million from carbon credit sales and results-based payments. Over 20% of that has gone directly to indigenous communities, who now lead over 1,300 projects nationwide. Alongside national resources, we're investing the revenues in scaling energy access fivefold, rolling out the largest solar program in our region, and accelerating hydro development. We are mapping minerals to support sustainable mining and implementing a new model of urban development rooted in our identity. We're implementing the largest climate adaptation program in our country's history and opening up 30,000 hectares of non-forested land to enhance food security while keeping pressure away from the forests. Very importantly. Our message is simple. Prosperity and forest protection are not mutually exclusive. In our 15-year journey, we have made mistakes, but we have also learned what works and what doesn't. Let me highlight just 4 lessons that I hope the FCLP can learn from and act upon. First, there must be stable, sustainable, and reliable economic incentives to act on forests. Guyana was fortunate to integrate with such incentives through our pioneering partnership with Norway and our access to carbon markets. These mechanisms laid the financial foundation for our low-carbon development strategy. Yet today, too many tropical forest countries face a constantly shifting landscape for new economic incentives. Shrinking ODA is accompanied by attempts to introduce increasing complexity in carbon markets, often with no basis in rigorous analysis and totally without regard for practical implementation. Innovative finance mechanisms go unfunded through lack of knowledge. So by COP30, the FCLP must help create and deliver a full menu of financing options to unleash private and public investment. Jurisdictional carbon credits, results-based payments, concessional finance, and bold ideas like Brazil's Tropical Forest Forever Fund. These are some of what is needed. Second, international partnership has been central to our story from the beginning. While the majority of the credit for Guyana's progress goes to the people of Guyana, alongside the vision of our former president, President Jagdeo, we also value the leadership of the Prime Minister of Norway, whose government helped us establish one of the world's first large-scale forest finance agreements. We also work closely with His Majesty King Charles, first through the Prince Rainforest Project and now through the King's Foundation, which supports our sustainable urban development priorities. On this note, we are hoping that in just a few years, we will walk in a forest city here in Guyana. And even the new city, Silica City that we're planning, you will walk in a city that is the richest in biodiversity in the world. This is how serious we are taking this. Whilst many are saying, how many more flyovers you're going to build? We are thinking about how we create a forest city. Planting hundreds of thousands of trees. Not replanting, because we have not taken down, but planting anew, adding more and greater value. I want to pay a particular welcome to Ben Bulgar, who is with us today from the King's team. Ben is doing fantastic work on our urban planning and helping Amerindian communities advance their village plans. The world needs leaders who act as champions of the forest agenda. In the way President Jack Dale, Prime Minister of Norway, and King Charles did years ago. I hope that the FCLP will help to make the case for why we need to see such leaders emerge in the years and months ahead. Third, leadership must go beyond vision. It requires execution. That is why the FCLP must help remove barriers, create space for bold decisions, and empower those closest to the work. This partnership must support countries to act. And not only act, but we must bring everyone in this process. We must build a partnership and network. Bring everyone, all the stakeholders with us. We cannot work in isolation of the oil and gas companies. We cannot work in isolation of the mining companies. We have to bring all the stakeholders, because we can only win when all of us are singing from the same hymn sheet. When all of us understand what collective action and collective responsibility really mean. It must champion political ownership and delivery, not technocratic perfectionism. And I hope you're not looking for that here. We're not here to prove science. We're not here to prove theory. We're not here to prove perfectionism. We have to have first and foremost the political will to make this happen. Sometimes political will is stymied by electoral cycle. That is why it must be built on something larger than individual countries. It must be built on a global platform. That is what makes it stronger and longer lasting. I was in Glasgow when the Leaders' Declaration on Forests and Land Use was signed. I was in Dubai when forest goals were embedded in the global stocktake. We now have 5 years to act to meet those goals. If we succeed, this could be the single biggest contribution to global climate mitigation by 2030. And the world really cannot tell us they don't have money. Right, Ambassador? Even on one flight, we can get a $400 million gift as a plane. We can't get $400 million commitment on climate. Think about it. But our voices is being pushed back. It is not that the resources is not there. It is just that we have not been able to tip the scale enough in our favor. Yes, despite ambition, delivery lags. To face that challenge, the FCLP must help elevate forest action to the highest political levels so that action on forests is seen as core national development, not just environmental policy. And you know, many people ask me, what is different? Why you want a global alliance on biodiversity here in Guyana? Because we want concentrated and specific attention on biodiversity. Let's face the reality. All the leaders who speak about biodiversity and climate, when you speak in the UN, and you get to your paragraph on forests or climate and biodiversity, who is sitting in the room? Who is sitting in the room? We have to create our own spaces and drive our own traffic and bring attention to the issues that matter to us ourselves. The global platform that allows us to do this has failed us. Unfortunately, the UN system is failing us. You go to COP, it's the same thing. It's up to the 32 of us to decide how we make it work for ourselves. To face that challenge, the FCLP must help elevate forest action to the highest political levels so that action on forests is seen as core national development, not just environmental policy. The FCLP must prioritize its own work ruthlessly, focus on actions that deliver maximum impact in the shortest time. And the FCLP must support Brazil as COP30 host, not just in name, but in substance. Their leadership matters, and so does what we achieve together. Let us work to make COP30 the most successful forest COP yet. The most successful forest COP yet. When I last met with President Lula, we discussed how to elevate forests on the global agenda. And he was very interested in our experiences here in Guyana. As COP30 approaches, I will do whatever I can to support him in that endeavor. And I want to thank our Brazilian colleagues who are here with us today. Your presence is very much valued. And I want to say to you, as I say to my team, this is not a foreign affairs matter. Let us not drop this in the bureaucratic lap of foreign affairs. I'm normally very frank. Because when we think we're elevating these matters And sometimes we put them in the foreign ministry or on the foreign affairs agenda. It gets lost. But as we focus on execution and look ahead, we must also confront the barriers, the old and new, that stand in the way of real progress. We are all familiar with the threats to progress that come from climate deniers. Let me be frank. Too often, real leadership is not stopped by climate deniers, but by two equally dangerous forces. The first is the climate blockers, bureaucracies, risk-averse systems, layers of consultants who turn straightforward decisions into endless processes. They create the illusion of progress while actually stalling it. Ambition is buried in excessive complexity. Action dies in process. Then there are the climate posers, individuals and organizations, often operating in and around the media with generous funding, who dominate headlines by targeting forest countries, particularly in the global south. They speak in the language of concern, but they misrepresent, distort, and distract. They don't build, they don't deliver, and too often they're rewarded with visibility and funding, while those doing the real work face criticism and delay. These voices are not harmless. They may not make the front pages, but they are just as dangerous as climate deniers. They erode trust, and that erosion has a real human cost. Livelihood loss, communities stall, forests that fall while the world hesitates. And that leads me to my fourth message, which is that in the end, what matters most is people. Forests don't protect themselves. Policies won't implement themselves. Carbon markets won't function without trust. It is people, especially indigenous peoples and local communities, but also public servants, the private sector, and civil society members, who are the architects of real solutions. They're not just beneficiaries, they're leaders, innovators, and custodians of the system that work. We know that indigenous peoples and local communities and citizens all over the country see that forest action delivers real benefits: clean water, energy, secure land rights, jobs, and dignity. They don't just participate, they lead. They defend the forest because it is inseparable from their identity, their livelihoods, and their future. In Guyana, we have seen this firsthand. Over 1,300 projects are being led by indigenous communities, building food systems, investing in health and education, and choosing to keep their forests standing. By investing in our indigenous people, today, more than 60% of the new entrants in our nursing program are indigenous Guyanese. And more than 50% of that 70% are women. These are the real stories that don't make the headline, that don't get the cover of all the exciting magazines. But these are the real stories of success. These are the real stories that we champion every day. That our climate team, that our public servants, champion every day. Not the shiny letters and golden plates to celebrate them, but hard work, dedication, and real results from real policies. So here in Guyana, we will build on this foundation. And we are building with partnership. That is why we are now working on learning from the King's Foundation. Not only visiting Dumfries Estate and being excited about it, but looking to replicate the estate of harmony, creating an entire ecosystem that brings opportunity. So we will build on this foundation. We will keep looking forward to the next phase of our vision and how we can make our contribution to the global good. In July this year, Guyana will host the inaugural summit of the Global Biodiversity Alliance. The summit will bring together governments, researchers, and private sector leaders to scale up finance for biodiversity conservation. It will focus on evidence-based policy and explore how biodiversity finance can reflect the additional value provided not only by tropical forests, but by other rich ecosystems across our country, ensuring protection of the full diversity of life that sustains us all. This is not abstract. This is how change happens, one empowered decision at a time. So over the coming days, I urge you to move from dialogue to delivery, so that this meeting becomes the launch pad it can be. The greatest threat isn't just inaction, it is distraction. Distraction, enough of which we have in the world today. Blockers hide behind process. Posers critique without contributing. But the world needs leaders, those who keep their focus on what needs to be done, take responsibility, and deliver results. That is a standard we must set here in Guyana this week. Ministers Barrett and McCarthy will write to their counterpart members in all FCLP members with the outcomes from this meeting. For my part, I will carry the outcomes of this meeting into every forum where forest ambition must be matched by political will. I will take this message. I will take this message to heads of government, to regional leaders, to finance ministers, to multilateral platforms. I will do my part to ensure your work influences global priorities and accelerate real action. That is my commitment to you. But I need you to make a commitment to me. If you want leaders to champion the work of the FCLP, we need to see with clarity. We need to see clarity and strategic focus in the actions you agree in the coming days. We need to see practical solutions to solve real problems. We will meet again on Thursday, and when we do, I would like to see a summary of those actions and practical solutions on one page. So to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, it is possible for this meeting to be a transformative moment in the world's long overdue march towards truly valuing nature. Take comfort from the knowledge that forest countries can lead. And we lead best when others walk with us, not ahead of us, not instead of us, but alongside us. I wish all our FCLP members and friends the very best in your work in the days ahead. Once again, welcome to Guyana. And in closing, another reason why we must have our own forums is that if I was at COP30, they would have stopped me from speaking about 40 minutes ago or 30 minutes ago. Thank you very much and God bless you.